Shido was a useless nitwit who can't talk to baddies, but his life changes when he is forced to riz multiple spiritual magic girls, or they will destroy the world. One morning before this, 30 years have passed since a massive space quake of unknown origin destroyed the Eurasian continent and isekai'd about 150 million people. Shido was woken up by his sister Kotori in the most annoying way possible. He threatened her with a tickle attack so that she would leave him alone to handle his glorious morning wood. A little while later, he went downstairs, and as he prepared breakfast, Kotori sat in the living room watching the news. It turned out that a space quake, which was much smaller than the one that occurred 30 years ago, had occurred, and thankfully there were no casualties. The siblings weren't surprised by this because after the first space quake occurred, more space quakes began to occur around the globe for 6 months. However, they suddenly stopped and only started up again 5 years ago, with most of the quakes occurring in Japan. After breakfast, the siblings left home and parted ways in front of their favorite restaurant, promising to meet up there after school. Kotori told Shido that even if there was a space quake, he had to come to the restaurant, and he assured her that he'd be there. While they were saying their goodbyes, the Powerpuff Girls, I, me, and Mai, Shido's classmates, happened to see them. The girls commented on how close the siblings were and wondered if it was because of Shido's sister complex, which they had heard rumors about. As soon as Kotori walked away, Tonomachi, another classmate of Shido's and a certified idiot, grabbed Shido's hand and asked if he was ready for the new semester. His action caused the girls to talk about the rumor that Tonomachi was a batter for the other team, and they wondered if he was trying to move in on Shido since they couldn't hear their conversation. Just then, I noticed Origami, the top student in their year, watching Shido and Tonomachi from behind a light pole. Before I could point out this Joe Goldberg behavior to her friends, Origami left. Later at school, while Tonomachi and Shido were discussing, Origami approached them and said Shido's name, which surprised him. After she took her seat, Shido asked Tonomachi who she was, and the gossip monger informed him that she was Tobiichi Origami, the Einstein of their year, and one of the girls he wished would fall for his negative riz. The next moment, the bell rang, signaling that class was about to begin, so the boys ended their conversation as Tamai Sensei, their homeroom teacher, walked in. After classes that day, alarms went off, signaling an incoming space quake, so the students were instructed to evacuate to the quake bunkers. As Shido waited in line with the other students, hoping to reach the bunker, he tried to contact Kotori to ensure she was safe in another bunker. Unfortunately, he couldn't, so he tracked her location and was shocked when it showed that she was at the restaurant. Without thinking, Shido rushed back to the surface, but before he got to the restaurant, the space quake occurred, stopping him in his tracks. As soon as the quake stopped, he noticed that not only had most of the buildings been damaged, but that in the middle of the crater was a girl, fronted him, asking if he'd come there to annihilate her. Shido tried to respond, but before he could, a flying unit of armed baddies suddenly showed up. They immediately opened fire on the girl, using everything in their arsenal against her, but the mystery girl fought back. As the fight between the armed girls and the mystery girl continued, Shido remained where he was, watching them like the confused idiot he was at that moment. When one of the girls swooped down to engage the mystery girl, Shido realized that it was Origami. She also recognized, but before either of them could ask the obvious question of why they were there, the mystery girl turned her attention to them. To protect Shido, Origami charged at the girl with her modified lightsaber, and as the two fought, a powerful shockwave was released. This shockwave knocked Shido out, and when he woke up later, he was being examined by a woman who introduced herself as Reina, and explained that he'd been found unconscious in the crater, and had been brought aboard their ship, Fraxinus, to get checked out. After assuring him that Kotori was safe, she took him to the bridge, and he was welcomed by the Vice Commander Kanazuki, before coming face to face with the commander, who, to his utmost surprise, was Kotori. Ignoring the shock her brother was going through, Kotori began explaining the situation to him. She informed him that the mystery girl was what they called a spirit, and said that her arrival on Earth was the cause of the space quake which occurred that day. She also told him that Origami's group of wannabe Robocops were known as the AST, or the Anti-Spirit Team. They were a team tasked by the government to slay every spirit which manifested after a space quake. Shido was shocked to hear that Origami's mission had been to end a person's life, but he relaxed when Kotori revealed that there was a way to defeat a spirit without revoking their breathing license, which involved him. The following day, Shido was surprised when Tamai-sensei introduced Reina to the class as their new physics teacher. During the break, he went to meet Reina and Kotori since they were together in the lab and confronted them. They explained that they needed to watch over him, and this was the best way to do it without raising suspicion. He then asked Kurori if she was playing hooky, and she told him that she'd made the proper arrangements, refusing to explain further. Instead, she told him that his training to become the savior of spirits was about to begin, and instructed Reni to show him the training module. The module turned out to be a gal game. which briefly explained spirits and informed him that his role in the fight was to riz the spirits up and make them fall in love with him. Later, after he met with Kotori and Reine, Shido was approached by Origami, who asked him to forget about everything he saw that day. Shido asked why she was part of the spirit slaying corps, and she told him it was because a spirit was responsible for the deaths of her parents, which shocked him. About a week later, Shido completed the Gal game, so when he arrived at school, he went to see Rini and Kotori, and they informed him that the second stage of his training would kick off that day. This stage was the practical stage, and his first target was Tamae-sensei. Try as he may, Shido couldn't get the right words out and stuttered like a fool while trying to speak to Tamae. To help him out, Reine instructed him to repeat the words she said, and Shido did so without thinking. The result of this was Tamae exposing her cougar ways and planning her marriage to Shido, before telling him she would wait for him to come of age. Shocked by the woman's groomer response, Shido told her that his confession was a lie and yeeted away from her immediately. During his mad dash, he bumped into Origami, causing both of them to fall, and as Shido tried to get up, he got a glimpse of her underwear. Thankfully, he was more of a gentleman than a cultured degenerate, so he averted his gaze and fixed it on Origami's face instead. From his earpiece, Kotori instructed him to make a move on Origami. Since he was tongue-tied, Reine stepped in again, telling him what to say, and to their surprise, Origami quickly agreed to go on a date with him just as the spacequake alarms went off. Immediately, Origami told him she had to leave, and Kotori instructed Shido to board Fraxinus, explaining that the quake would occur at the school. A little while later, the school was badly damaged because of the quake, but surprisingly, the AST didn't make a move to capture the spirit. Kotori explained that it was because their gear wasn't designed for indoor combat, and told Shido that it was time for him to make his move. He was dropped off outside the school, and as he walked inside, Kotori assured him that she and her team had his back. When he found the spirit, she pointed her sword at him, asking who he was, so Kotori had the ship's AI analyze the situation and come up with a possible response for him. Unfortunately, the option the crew picked almost cost Shido his life when he said it because the girl had zero tolerance for mid-pickup lines. Fortunately, she recognized him as the guy she'd met before, so Shido introduced himself and assured her that he wasn't part of the group that wanted her dead. The girl didn't believe him and asked to know what his true intentions were. But, like before, Kotori's team stepped in, preventing Shido from saying what he had in mind. The problem with this decision was that every option they picked annoyed the spirit so much that she attacked Shido. Fearing for his life, Shido decided to stop acting like a mindless puppet and speak to the girl without any assistance. He told her that he'd come to talk to her so he could get to know her, causing the girl to warm up to him. She admitted that he was the first human to speak to her, as all the AST did was shoot at her and try to end her life. As they conversed, Shido learned that she didn't have a name, and she told him she wouldn't mind if he gave her one. Since his brain wasn't the type to function properly under pressure, Kotori's crew offered to help him come up with a name. After much deliberation, he was given the name Tome, but when he told the spirit the name, she became pissed. Fearing that she'd do something to him, Shido quickly came up with the name Toka, and surprisingly, she liked the name. While he was teaching her to spell her name, the AST suddenly opened fire on them, hoping to draw Toka out. Thankfully, Shido wasn't hurt, and when Toka advised him to leave, he stubbornly refused, saying that his plot armor was stronger than titanium. Intrigued by his fearlessness, Toka decided to stay and chat with him, using her spirit barrier to stop the bullets from reaching them. As the two discussed, Kotori instructed Shido to ask Toka out on a date, so he did, but the clueless girl had no idea what a date was. While he was trying to explain it to her, the part of the building covering him fell off, causing the AST to halt their assault, but the moment Origami realized it was Shido, she charged into the classroom. Shido tried explaining that Toka hadn't done anything to him, but Origami refused to listen. The next moment, Origami charged at Toka, but Toka defended herself using her sword Sandalphon. The force of her attack pushed Origami back, but thankfully Shido was there to act as her human cushion. At the end of the day, Toka pulled an avatar Roku, and Origami was airlifted out of the school premises, while her captain scolded her because she'd sustained some injuries. The following day, when Shido returned to the rubble that used to be the school, Toka showed up so they could go on their date. Shido asked her to change outfits, as her astral dress would only make them targets. He gave her the picture Origami gave to him, so she could use it as a reference, and after she changed outfits using her powers, the two left for their date. Toka was fascinated by everything she saw, especially the food, so Shido bought her some, and as they walked around, Shido asked why she'd disappeared during her fight with Origami. Toka explained that the action had been involuntary, just like when she appeared on Earth, which surprised him. It also made him realize that the spacequakes occurred unintentionally, and that Toka might just be a victim of circumstances. Since Toka had walked off, Shido quickly rushed after her, unaware that Origami was watching them. Meanwhile, Toka came across a restaurant which she rushed into, much to Shido's horror, because the boy was almost as broke as the main cast of Gintama. However, luck shined upon him in the form of Tonomachi, who suddenly appeared like the fairy godmother and gave him some vouchers for the restaurant. He said he wouldn't be a good wingman if he couldn't help his friend out, and Shido was grateful for it. Upon entering the restaurant, Shido was greeted by Reina, who told him that she was working undercover. She then pointed him in the direction of Toka, and after Shido took his seat, he was surprised to learn that Kotori was their waitress. As the siblings watched Toka attempt to take Goku's title as the foodie of the year, Kotori instructed Shido to take Toka to a specific area. Shido pointed out that the area in question was a residential one, but she insisted that he do as she said, so he shut up. Shortly after Shido and Toka left the restaurant, Shido discovered that Kotori's people had transformed the residential area into a festival spot. They told Shido and Toka that since they were the 100,000th people to visit, they had won the chance to have anything they wanted for free. Hearing that she could pig out on anything she wanted, Toka didn't hold back and dragged Shido to every booth so she could taste their delicious food. At the same time, Sherlock Holmes, Origami, had tracked their location and sent word to her people, requesting backup. Meanwhile, Toka and Shido went on to play a game in a raffle booth and won the grand prize, which was a ticket to a place called Dream Park. Shido wondered if Dream Park was their rip-off version of Disneyland, but soon realized how wrong he was when he found himself standing in front of a motel. Toka was excited to go in, but Shido was very determined to avoid any form of aerobics, so he pulled her away before she could go on. Unknown to them, Origami was hiding inside the motel's premises, and as Shido dragged Toka away, she requested a CR unit to be sent to her location. Once it arrived, she suited up and quietly followed Shido and Toka to their next destination, which was a gaming center which fascinated Toka. What caught her attention the most was the catcher machine with a bread plushie, so Shido let her have a go at it. Unfortunately, she didn't get it on her first try, so he switched to boyfriend mode and helped her try again. This time, the plushie got stuck at the side of the drop hole, making Toka sad, but by some miracle, after she begged and pleaded, it dropped. After collecting her plushie, the pair left the arcade, and as they sat in a playground, Toka admitted that she'd enjoyed their date, so Shido tried to convince her to remain on Earth permanently. Unknown to them, Origami was on a nearby hill with a sniper rifle, awaiting orders from her captain to take Toka out. It didn't take long for the order to be given, so she took the shot without hesitation. Unfortunately, Shido's spidey senses kicked in at that moment, so he pushed Toka out of the way and got shot instead. Seeing Shido's lifeless body lying on the ground made Toka snap, so she transformed into her astral dress and summoned her angel Sandalphon, activating its ultimate destruction mode, Halvan Helev. Origami's captain ordered her team to retreat, but Origami remained where she was, as she had yet to come to terms with the fact that she had shot Shido. Meanwhile, aboard Fraxinus, the crew detected a space quake just as the alarms went off, and they told Kotori that the time frame was too short for people to evacuate. Kotori assured them that things would be fine, but they looked at her like she'd lost more than a few screws. They asked why she was so calm after seeing her brother getting gunned down, and Kotori responded, saying that Shido wasn't some useless NPC created for the sake of the plot. As if on cue, Shido's injury was enveloped by a flame, and the next moment, he jerked awake, wondering what in the reincarnation had happened. On the other hand, Toka was about to unleash her anger on Origami, who was yet to move, as she still couldn't accept what she'd done. Before Toka could deliver her punishment, she heard screaming and turned around to see Shido falling towards her, so she rushed to save him. After confirming that Shido was alive, Toka panicked about losing control of her sword, which would cause an explosion. Shido told her to calm down and that they needed to kiss to avert the danger. Eager to please him, Toka kissed Shido, sealing away her powers and leaving her in her birthday suit. A few days later, after renovations, Toka was introduced as a transfer student to Shido's class. A few days later, Shido got caught in the rain on his way to school, so he decided to take shelter in a shrine. While there, he saw a young girl playing in the puddle, and when she fell, he rushed to help her, but the girl was afraid and moved away. Later, at school, an excited Toka rushed into the class with a plate of cookies she had baked and wanted to give him. Before he could try them, Origami appeared with cookies of her own, and both girls began arguing about whose cookie he'd eat first. To settle the issue, Shido took a cookie from each girl and ate them at the same time before telling the girls that they tasted divine. Upon getting home later that day, Shido went to take a shower, but when he opened the door, he was shocked to see Toka occupying the place. Immediately, he went to find Kotori and demanded answers, so she informed him that Toka would be living with them temporarily. Since Reina was there at the time, the trio sat at the dinner table and Reina explained the things Kotori didn't. She said that kissing Toka and sealing her powers away, but they still had to keep her emotions in cheek. So until the housing unit they were building was finished, she would stay with them. The next day at school, while Shido was having lunch with Toka and Origami, the space quake alarms went off, so Origami dashed off to join her team. While the rest of the students were evacuating, Rainy informed Shido that they couldn't bring Toka with them, since she didn't have her powers. Having no choice, he handed Toka over to Tamai-sensei, pleading with the woman to watch over her while he was away. Toka didn't understand why Shido had to leave, but he promised her that he would be back and asked her to remain by their teacher's side. Shortly after, Shido and Reina were teleported aboard Fraxinus, and when he arrived at the bridge, Kotori showed him the live footage from the Spacequake's crater. Shido couldn't believe that the new spirit was the young girl he'd met at the shrine, and after watching how relentless the AST were in their mission to end her life, Shido told Kotori that he wished to play the hero and save the girl. A little while later, he was teleported inside the mall where the spirit had taken refuge, and while Kotori was instructing him on what to do, the girl and her puppet revealed themselves to him. Kotori and the crew offered their assistance as usual, but it didn't work, so Shido ignored the option they gave and introduced himself to them. The puppet responded that its name was Yoshino, but because Shido was a dense fool, he asked the girl if she and the puppet shared the same name. Suddenly, the girl's happiness meter dropped, so Kotori told him to fix it before things got out of hand. So he changed the topic and asked the girl if she would go on a date with him, which surprised Yoshino. Meanwhile, in the school's quake bunker, Tamai tried to assure a worried Toka that Shido was fine, but Toka wasn't convinced and left to search for him before Tamai realized what was happening. Back in the mall, Shido tried to talk the girl down from the jungle gym set she climbed onto, but she refused to listen and fell. Immediately, Shido moved to catch her, so she landed on him, and their lips accidentally touched. The girl got off him, and Yoshino apologized for their clumsiness. But before Shido could respond, Kotori informed him that there was an emergency. Just as she was about to tell him what it was, he sensed the angry energy that Super Saiyan Toka was sending his way and panicked. Toka angrily demanded to know why he was locking lips with someone else. So Shido explained that it was an accident, but Yoshino piped up, saying it was because his new favorite key was the minor key. Kotori warned Shido that if he didn't calm Toka down, her powers would return to her, so he tried to appease her. He swore that the rabbit was lying, but because Toka was gullible, she ate up every lie that Yoshino told her. Annoyed, Toka grabbed the puppet and tried to strangle it, causing the girl to try to take it from her. At that moment, Kotori informed Shido that the young spirit's emotions were rapidly declining, so he politely asked Toka to return the puppet. Unfortunately, his request only made Toka assume he had chosen the girl over her. Before he could explain that she was wrong, the young spirit summoned her angel Zadkiel, and it came up out of the ground. Hopping onto its back, the girl inserted her hand into the creature's neck and began controlling it like a puppet. The next moment, the store froze, and Kotori ordered Shido to get out of there before she went all Elsa on them. Almost as if she'd heard Kotori, the girl began shooting icicles at them, so Shido grabbed Toka and jumped out of the way. The angel then picked Yoshino up and jumped out of the building, making it a target for the AST. Fortunately, she managed to escape by creating snow, which blocked the AST's visuals. With their target gone, Ryuko, Origami's captain, ordered her team to retreat and return to base. As Origami prepared to obey these orders, she spotted Yoshino lying on the ground and went to pick it up. The following day, Rainy invited Toka to a diner to discuss the issue between her and Shido. Toka denied that she was upset with Shido, but Rainy managed to coax the truth out of her, and she admitted that she didn't understand why she felt that way. Rainy then helped Toka understand that Shido cared for her, and that there wasn't anything between Shido and Yoshino, by reminding her that Shido had saved her at the risk of his life when Yoshino attacked them with her icicles. At the same time, close to the mall where the incident occurred, Shido was on his way home from the grocery store when he spotted the young spirit searching through the trash. Upon closer inspection, he noticed she didn't have Yoshino, so he called out to her. At first, she was spooked and tried to run away, but when he asked if she was looking for Yoshino, she ran to him and nodded her head in response. Shido called Kotori and asked her to help him search for Yoshino. Kotori assured him that her team was on the case, but advised him to keep the girl in his sights, so he told the girl that he would help her search for her puppet. The girl then told him that her name was Yoshino, and when she turned to leave, he stopped her and gave her his umbrella, assuring her that he was fine without it. Elsewhere, Shido and Yoshino continue searching for Yoshino, but when Yoshino's stomach starts growling, Shido invites her back to his place for a meal. At the house, Shido began preparing a meal for Yoshino, and as he did that, he asked questions about Yoshino. Yoshino told him that the puppet was her best friend and hero, stating that Yoshino was the kind of person she wanted to be. After their meal, Shido asked Yoshino why she didn't fight back when the AST attacked her, and she told him it was because she hated violence and got scared easily. After hearing this, Shido patted her head and promised to not only find Yoshino, but to also protect her from those who wished to harm her. Yoshino thanked Shido for his help and awkwardly addressed the accidental kiss, which she didn't understand. As Shido explained, he tried to sneak a kiss to seal her powers. Toka entered, froze at the sight, and Yoshino disappeared. Kotori then informed Shido they had found Yoshino, and he was surprised to learn Origami had it. After reaching her apartment, Shido's communication with Kotori was cut off, leaving him alone. Origami invited him in and served a cup of terrible-tasting tea that nearly choked him. As he lay on the floor, Origami straddled him, but Shido told her that he wasn't interested in breaching her garden gates and asked her to get off him. Origami told him she'd only comply with his request if he agreed to address her by her first name instead of her last name. Seeing nothing wrong with the request, Shido agreed, so he got up and excused herself to take a shower, seeing as how being on top of him had opened her floodgates. While Origami showered, Shido searched every nook and cranny of her apartment until he found Yoshino and returned to the spot where she left him. When Origami finished her shower, she came to sit beside Shido in her towel, making him feel uncomfortable. However, she didn't leave him alone and questioned him about what happened on the day she shot him. She asked how he'd come back from the dead, but Shido expertly changed the conversation by asking if she'd ever talked to a spirit. He told her that he'd spoken to them, which surprised Origami, and she warned him to stay away from them, stating that they were dangerous beings. Shido defended Toka and Yoshino, saying that the girls were good, and pleading with Origami not to hurt them because they were innocent. Just then, her phone vibrated with a warning of a spacequake, so she told Shido to head to a bunker. Later, she joined her team to chase a scared Yoshino around the city, and when she got cornered, she summoned Zadkiel, who turned the place into a frozen winterland as soon as it appeared. While running, Yoshino heard Shido call out to her, so she changed directions and approached him. Just as Shido was about to reunite her with her beloved puppet, Origami opened fire on Yoshino, causing the girl to become scared and lose control of her angel. From afar, Toka watched helplessly as Shido was about to get hit by Zadkiel's blast, so she attempted to summon Sandalphon. Unfortunately, since her powers were sealed, she couldn't summon her angel and became worried. However, at the last minute, she managed to summon the angel to act as a shield for Shido. After Zadkiel released his icy blast, he began moving again, so Origami and her team chased after it, leaving Shido alone. When Toka arrived, she apologized for allowing the green-eyed monster to make her doubt him, and he assured her that he wasn't angry with her. He then asked for her help to save Yoshino, which pissed her off again, so he explained that Yoshino was a spirit in need of his help, just like she had been. In the end, she realized how wrong she had been, so she told him to get on Sandalphon and use it to get to Yoshino before it was too late. At the same time, to protect herself, Yoshino created a blizzard, which prevented the AST from drawing closer to her. Refusing to give up, Origami activated her realizer and used it to lift a nearby building, which she intended to drop at the center of the blizzard. However, Toka slashed the building in half before she could achieve her goal, and when Ryoko saw her, she ordered her team to go after her instead. With the AST focused on hunting Toka, Shido made his way into the blizzard with Yoshino, ignoring Kotori's warning that he may die even with his regenerative powers. Upon entering the dome, he felt weak and collapsed, worrying Yoshino. Fortunately, his powers healed his injuries, and he playfully revealed Yoshino to her, fulfilling his promise. Overcome with emotion, Yoshino cried, and he reassured her that everything was okay. After she thanked him for finding Yoshino, he said it was her turn to be saved, which required them to kiss. At first it seemed like she wouldn't do it, however she surprised him by kissing him unexpectedly, and immediately her astral dress, angel, and blizzard vanished. Days later, Shido was surprised to see the new building standing next to their house, and Kotori explained that it was the new living quarters they had built for the spirits. Just then, Yoshino approached the sibling, and after greeting them, she told Shido she was looking forward to seeing him around often. Sometime later, Shido informed Kotori that the girls wanted to visit a hot spring, so she told him she would make the necessary arrangements. While they were still discussing, Kanazuki inserted himself into the conversation, suggesting that Kotori join them on the trip. He promised to hold down the fort while she was gone, but ultimately revealed his dirty and cultured desires to spy on her while she was enjoying the spring. As punishment for his culturedness, Kotori ordered him to be taken away to a certain location where he was to dig and fill up a hole for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, at the AST headquarters, Ryuko was informed by her superior that DEM Industries would send someone capable of joining her team since all their recent missions had been a failure. After leaving the old man's office, Ryuko took her anger out on her paperwork, but stopped when one of her subordinates came to speak to her about their annual company trip. Hearing about the trip instantly brightened up Ryuko's mood, but when she heard that the higher-ups canceled it because of the recent increase in spirit activity, she nearly blew a fuse. However, the girl calmed her down by suggesting they visit a hot spring instead to take the edge off, and Ryuko happily welcomed the idea. The girl immediately left to inform her fellow group members about their captain's decision, and they were all thrilled except for Origami, who told them that they ought to spend their free time training since they will never get a training arc. Just then, Shido called to tell her that he couldn't return the book he borrowed from her like he promised. Origami inquired if something was happening, but before he could respond, she heard Toka telling him to get moving as they had to get to the hot springs. Later on, as Rina drove Shido and the girls to the hot springs, the girls looked out the window in awe as it was their first time in a car. When Shido gave Yoshino an encouraging pat on the head, Toka insisted he do the same for her, but he told her that unless he suddenly became Plastic Man, there was no way he could reach her from where he was. When she began complaining about how much he preferred Yoshino to her, Yoshino asked Shido to pat his head, and Shido obliged much to Toka's annoyance. Her anger soon got the best of her, so the next time she threw a tantrum, her foot went through the car floor and hit the road, causing it to cave in. Coincidentally, the AST deployment train happened to be directly underneath them. So, when the cave-in happened, their path got blocked, forcing them to continue their journey on foot. On the surface, Shido's group was also continuing on foot, and Toka, feeling sorry, apologized for acting like a spoiled brat. Shido assured her that he wasn't angry with her, and cheered her up by patting her on the head like she wanted. Fraxinus's crew observed them from the sky, and when they noticed that the AST group was close behind them, they became worried, believing that they were after the girls. Since Kotori was absent, they appointed a temporary commander and proceeded to create roadblocks to stop the AST group. While they searched for another route to take, Shido and the girls continued on their journey, but Shido stopped in his tracks when he spotted Kotori pretending to be a shop attendant. He asked why she was there, and she told him it was because she wanted to keep an eye on them. Realizing she was being a Pinocchio, Shido told her that she could join them, which made her happy. Unfortunately, her happiness was short-lived because she received a call from her crew, informing her of the presence of the AST group, so she asked them to proceed without her. Speaking of the AST, the group encountered another blockade, but instead of finding another route, a frustrated Ryuko used explosives to destroy the wall. When Kotori noticed what they had done, she ordered her crew to stop them at all costs, so they launched a full-scale, non-lethal attack on the AST. Eventually, Ryuko got fed up with the Looney Tunes style of obstruction and decided to retaliate by destroying all the traps Kotori's crew set, annoying Kotori even more. Unfortunately, one of the missiles dropped and exploded close to where Shido and the girls were, causing Yoshino to let go of Yoshino. When she realized that her puppet was gone, Yoshino began crying, and the next moment, the area was hit with rain and ice. Reine told Shido to locate the puppet if he wanted the girl to stop crying, so he assured Yoshino that he'd get Yoshino back and went off to find the puppet. Seeing that Ryuko's actions had opened the way for the AST to proceed, Kotori instructed her crew to use all the traps in their arsenal to stop them. Following their commander's instructions, the crew set off all the traps, causing Ryuko to wonder why everything was working against her and her plans to relax. Irritated, she ordered her troops to fight back, and as they did, Shido did his best to avoid the chaos as he searched for Yoshino. When he located the puppet, he turned to leave but stopped in his tracks when he spotted a giant bomb falling from the sky. When Kotori realized that her brother was in the direct line of the impending explosion, she ordered her crew to stop the attack, but it was already too late. The bomb hit and exploded. Fortunately, Shido was saved by Toka, who arrived just in time and cast a barrier right before the bomb exploded. Origami spotted Toka when the smoke cleared up, and immediately she tried to attack, but before she could, they disappeared into thin air. This made the other AST members who saw them wonder if everything that happened was because of spirits. When everything settled down, Ryuko stood on top of the rubble and laughed happily as she announced that she was feeling much better, much to the relief of her troops. Shortly after, they all arrived at the hot springs, and just as they moved to get into the water, they were frozen solid. This was because Yoshino had a breakdown and released her powers after watching Yoshino's head fall into the water. With the hot spring out of commission, Shido and the girls thought about returning home when Kanazuki called Kotori to inform her that the spot he was instructed to dig was a hot spring, so they went there instead. Days later, Mana, the agent from DEM, arrived, and during the daily briefing, while they were watching the recorded footage of the fight the team had with Yoshino, Mana's attention was drawn to Shido. Shocked, she referred to him as Big Brother, surprising Origami. So after the briefing, Origami approached Mana and asked why she'd called Shido her brother. Instead of responding, Mana asked Origami what the nature of her relationship with Shido was, and the delusional cuckoo said they were lovers. At school the next day, a new student was introduced to Shido's class, and the girl told the class that her name was Kurumi, after which she announced that she was a spirit, shocking Shido, Toka, and Origami into silence. When Tamae-sensei told Kurumi to pick a seat, she requested that Shido show her around the school later, so she could familiarize herself with it. While that was happening, Ryuko and her team received a report that a spirit had enrolled at Raisin High School. Ryuko refused to believe the report was accurate, but Mana assured her that it was, stating that the spirit in question had isekai'd over 10,000 people, not including the ones that died because of the space quake she caused, and this spirit was famously known as Nightmare. Back at school, Kotori confirmed to Shido that Kurumi was a spirit, and instructed him to tap into his inner Rizzler and make her fall for him before the AST came looking for her. The next moment, Kurumi called out to Shido, asking him to take her on the tour as he had promised. As the two began their tour, they weren't aware that Toka and Origami were watching them. Abroad, Fraxinus, Kotori, and the crew monitor Shido and Kurumi, and as usual, they vote on which action is the best for him to take. The crew tried to help Shido up his flirting game, so they voted on what he should tell Kurumi. When the voting was done, Kotori noticed that someone picked the option to ask Kurumi to show Shido her underwear, and when she asked who it was, Kanazuki stepped up. The cultured fool tried to defend his decision, but Kotori got tired of listening to him, so she snapped her fingers and he was taken away again. As soon as the doors closed, Kotori wondered out loud how such a perverse option came about, and when she repeated the question, Shido parroted it to Kurumi. It was at that moment that Kotori realized that she'd accidentally turned on her mic, so she told Shido that it was the wrong option and instructed him to find a way to salvage the situation. However, Kurumi asked Shido if he would like to take a peek, adding that she wouldn't mind so long as it was him, before walking up the stairs to stand before him. Before Shido could recover from the shock, Kurumi slowly began to lift her skirt, but Shido resisted the temptation and stopped her. He apologized for making her do something so inappropriate and asked what she meant when she said she was a spirit. Kurumi answered that he knew what she meant, revealing that she knew all about his dealings with spirits, which surprised him and the crew of Fraxinus. Shido tried to get her to tell him how she discovered his secret, but Kurumi remained tight-lipped, leaving him more confused. The next moment, she took his hands in hers and told him that from the moment she found out about him, she'd been praying for a chance to be alone with him. She then asked if he could do a favor for her, but before she could say what it was, Toka and Origami fell out of the nearby locker. The shocked Shido asked what they had been doing in the locker, and each girl gave a different response. When they asked Shido why he was holding hands with Kurumi, the sneaky witch told them it was because she had been feeling dizzy and weak. Later, after school, Kurumi thanked Shido and Toka for showing her around the school, but whispered to Shido that next time she wished it would be just the two of them alone. She then said goodbye to the two before running off, and as she walked home, she bumped into a guy who was coming out of an alley with his friends. Kurumi immediately apologized, but the man insisted that she owed him more than an apology, making her realize that she'd run into a bunch of sleazeballs. Instead of freaking out or attempting to run, Kurumi played along, promising the guys a good time, so they followed her into the alley. The next moment, their blood-curdling screams filled the air, and after Truck-kun passed by, all that was left were bloodstains and a crazed-looking Kurumi, who thanked the three men for providing dinner for her. Just then, Mana appeared in the alley and casually called Kurumi out for eating people, like she was saying hello to an old friend. Elsewhere, Shido and Toka had just finished grocery shopping and were on their way home when Mana suddenly showed up and hugged Shido, calling him Big Brother, which surprised them. Having no choice, they took her home and introduced her to Kotori and Yoshino. When they sat down to discuss their familiar relationship, it was revealed that Shido was adopted by Kotori's family when he was younger, and that neither he nor Mana remembered much from their childhood. Shido admitted that he didn't remember Mana, and she told him that she also didn't remember him, explaining that she only knew they were related because of the picture in her locket, which she showed them. Mana said that the only thing she remembered about him was that she felt sad when he was taken away, but now that they were reunited, she was happy. When she went to hug him again, a jealous Kotori kicked Shido out of his seat, and when they asked why she did it, she firmly stated that she wasn't going to let Mana take her brother away. Mana assured her that she wasn't planning on doing so and explained that she was fine, knowing that Shido was doing okay. When she mentioned that she was his biological sister, Kotori took offense, and a pointless argument began between them. When they finally stopped, Shido asked Mana to tell him where she was staying so they could visit her, but she answered vaguely before rushing off. The following day, during roll call, it was discovered that Kurumi was absent, and Shido wondered out loud if she had dropped out. Origami responded that she would no longer attend school again, confusing Shido, but before he could question her, Kurumi arrived. Origami's reaction to seeing her was one of shock, and Shido noticed it, but his phone pinged at that moment with a message from Kotori, asking him to meet her in the physics room later. During lunch break, Shido went to the physics room to meet Kotori and Reina, and they showed him the surveillance footage from the day before when Mana and Kurumi met. What happened was that Mana equipped her CR unit while Kurumi equipped her astral dress, but in the blink of an eye, Mana shot Kurumi down. As Kurumi lay injured on the ground, Mana approached her and finished her off, much to Shido's horror. Meanwhile, Origami confronted Kurumi, remarking that she should be dead, so Kurumi then restrained her with her shadow hands and began taunting her, saying they failed their mission. Origami demanded to know what her fate was, and Kurumi told her that her true target was Shido, before threatening to hurt her if she got in her way. After classes, Shido approached Kurumi and asked her out on a date, as per Kotori's instructions, and she happily agreed. As Shido and Toka walked home later, he apologized for ditching her during lunch, but Toka wasn't paying attention. This was because she was lost in thought, thinking about the conversation she had with I, Mai, and me after they found her crying during lunch. When she told them it was because Shido was yet to return, they hugged her and promised to help her out. In the present, Shido and Toka arrived at his place, and while he went to put the groceries they bought away, Toka locked the door and pulled the curtains closed. Curious, Shido asked what the problem was, but she ignored him, unbuttoned her shirt, and began crawling towards him with a ticket in her mouth. Still confused, Shido tried moving back and accidentally fell on the couch as he asked Toka if she was feeling okay. Wondering why her seductive advance wasn't working, Toka stopped and read from a piece of paper. When she was done, she put the ticket between her melons and continued crawling towards Shido until she got to him. She then moved closer to him as she asked if he would go on a date with her the next day, and without thinking, he answered that he would, taking the ticket out of her cleavage. Satisfied, Toka informed him that they would meet in front of the station by 10, after which she happily took her leave. Shortly after this, he received a call from Origami, who told him to meet her in front of the station by 11, and without hearing his response, she hung up the phone, and that was how he ended up having 3 dates lined up for the same day. Nevertheless, he showed up in front of the station the next day before 10 to wait for Toka, and when she arrived, they went to the aquarium. Toka was in awe of everything she saw, but Shido couldn't stay with her for long because Kotori informed him that it was almost time for him to meet Kurumi. Using the excuse of a terrible stomachache, Shido rushed out of the aquarium to find a secluded area where Fraxinus's teleportation device picked him up and deposited him near the station. When Kurumi and the crew voted for him to take her to a lingerie store, Shido proposed the idea to Kurumi, and the succubus in training happily agreed, so they went to the store. There, Shido picked a piece for Kurumi because the crew voted on it, so she took the piece and went into the changing room. When she re-emerged shortly after wearing the piece, I, Mai, and me suddenly showed up and saw the two together, so they asked Shido why he was with her. The next moment, Kotori informed him that it was time for his date with Origami, so he pulled the same trick he pulled with Toka, and before he left, he complimented Kurumi. His actions annoyed the 3 girls, so they chased after him, demanding an answer to their questions, but he outran them. When he got to Origami, he apologized for being late, and she assured him that she wasn't angry as she just arrived. They then went to a restaurant to have lunch, and while they ate, Shido spotted Toka searching for him, causing him to nearly choke on his food. When he recovered, he gave the same excuse about having a stomachache and rushed out of the restaurant as he'd just heard his house was on fire. Toka was relieved when she saw him, but her stomach growled at that moment, signaling the fact that she was hungry. Shido then took her to eat at a sushi restaurant, and while they were there, he feigned another stomachache so he could return to his date with Kurumi. When he met Kurumi, he was surprised after learning that she bought the lingerie he picked out because he had complimented her looks in it. As the day progressed, Shido shuffled between the 3 girls like a deck of cards, while trying to avoid getting caught by I, Mai, and me. Yoshino helped him one time when it seemed like he was about to get caught, so he continued his 3-way canon event. Later on, Shido and Kurumi went to a park, but Shido excused himself again, and as she waited for him, Kurumi heard a kitten crying. Curious, she went to investigate and came across a bunch of delinquents, terrorizing the kitten with pellet guns. As soon as she moved towards the boys, the hidden cameras the Fraxinus crew was using to monitor her suddenly lost signal. When Shido returned to find the bench empty, Kotori informed him that they had lost sight of Kurumi. Worried, he rushed to find her at the location where they last saw her, and when he arrived, he was shocked as the scene before him was something out of a horror movie. Unable to bear the sight, Shido began panicking and fell to his knees, and he watched as shot the last boy even though he begged her to spare his life. She then turned her attention to Shido, and to prevent him from running, she used her shadows to hold him in place. Just as she was about to do what she'd always wanted to do to him, she was suddenly thrown off him by an invisible force. As soon as she collided with the tree, Mana materialized and stood between her and Shido. She shot at Kurumi, injuring her in the process before walking up to her to finish the job. Shocked, Shido asked Mana how she could execute someone without batting an eye, and Mana responded, saying that it was her duty to slay spirits. She told Shido not to worry his pretty little head about what she'd done because Kurumi never truly stayed dead. Mana then revealed that she'd finished Kurumi off more times than she could count and said she'd keep doing it until the crazy spirit died for good. Appalled, Shido snapped at her, so she used territory to push him back and kept it on so he couldn't intervene with what she was about to do. Later, as a traumatized Shido mindlessly walked back to the station, he was met by Origami and Toka, who bumped into each other earlier. Worried, Toka grabbed Shido's hand and questioned him, but he was so out of it that his mind flashed back to the horror he witnessed in the park and immediately pulled away from her. Seeing the look of hurt on Toka's face, Shido apologized and then ran off because he had yet to come to terms with what he'd seen. A few hours later, as he returned home, he met Toka waiting for him outside, and after she confirmed that he was feeling better, she grabbed his hand and ran off. Shido asked where they were heading, and she answered that they were continuing their date. When they got to a restaurant, Shido told her that he couldn't afford to pay for their meal, and she assured him that he didn't have to because Sugar Mommy Reni had given her her black card. As they conversed, Toka revealed that Reina and Kotori had filled her in what transpired at the park with Mana and Kurumi. Shido admitted that he didn't know how he would save Kurumi because she was different from her and Yoshino, but Tohoa assured him that it wasn't so and convinced him not to give up on Kurumi. The following day, when Shido saw Kurumi, he approached her and promised that no matter what happened, he would save her. This statement irritated Kurumi, but she kept her cool and told Shido that his decision was a foolish one. After walking away from him, she went to the rooftop and changed her uniform into her astral dress before enveloping the entire school in a barrier. Meanwhile, Mana and Kurotri met at a secret location, and Mana expressed her disappointment at Kotori for working with Ratatosker. She said Kotori was putting Shido's life at risk, but defended her decision to work with Ratatostler, and then asked Mana why she was working for DEM. Mana was surprised that Kotori knew who she worked for, but still answered, saying that they had done more for her than anyone else ever did. Kotori looked at her with pity and asked how she could keep working for DEM after all the things they had done to her body. Confused, Mana asked what she was talking about, and that was when Kotori realized that the things done to Mana were done without her knowledge. It turned out that when Reina was conducting a background check on Mana, she had discovered the file with information regarding Mana. The file clearly stated that Mana had been pumped full of magical energy, which was a big risk to her life. The clueless girl had only 10 years left to live, and just as Kotori was about to spill the tea, they both received calls, informing them that Kurumi had released a boatload of spirit energy at the high school. Back at the school, everyone except Shido, who had spirit energy inside his body, and Toka, who was a spirit, passed out on the floor. As Shido spoke to Reini through his earpiece, Kurumi's voice came over the address system and she told Shido to come to the roof. When he got to the roof, he confronted Kurumi about her actions, and she revealed that the barrier sucked up the lifespan of those inside of it, and showed him how the clock in her left eye was slowly reversing, meaning her lifespan was getting replenished. Shido demanded that she undo her barrier, and she told him that she would do it after he retracted his statement about wanting to save her because she couldn't be saved. When Shido refused, she summoned a space quake and asked what he'd do if the quake hit while everyone at the school was immobilized. As Shido thought of the best option to take, Reina told him that Kurumi's emotional state had changed, stating that the spirit seemed to be afraid of him. Surprised, Shido devised a plan and told Kurumi that if she didn't stop the quake and remove the barrier, he would jump off the roof. Kurumi scoffed and called his threat a bluff, so Shido proved just how serious he was by tipping his head back and falling. Immediately, Kurumi went after him, and once he was safely back on the roof, she angrily scolded him, toying with his life. Unfazed, Shido told her that if she didn't comply with his request, he would find another way to end his life, so she reluctantly stopped the quake and removed the barrier. With the crisis averted, Shido once again told Kurumi that he would save her, and just as he was about to convince her to let him do it, a hand forced its way through her chest, shocking Shido. When her body fell, another Kurumi appeared, revealing that the secret to Kurumi's seemingly endless life was cloning. She'd been sending out clones to do her bidding while she remained in the shadows observing everything. After the clone Kurumi was dragged away by shadows, the real Kurumi summoned more shadows to hold Shido in place. However, before she could do anything to him, her arm was sliced off by Mana, who had just arrived, so Kurumi declared that it was time for Mana to meet her maker. She summoned her angel Zafki and used the power of its fourth bullet, which turns back time a little, to fix her arm. She then began taunting Mana, but Mana assured her that getting rid of her would be a walk in the park since she had done it many times before. What Mana hadn't expected was for Kurumi to use her angel's power to speed up her reaction time. So before Mana could react, Kurumi shot her. Refusing to stay down, Mana charged at Kurumi, but Kurumi used her angel's powers to stop her before shooting her multiple times. Surprisingly, Mana didn't die, and as she lay on the floor, Toka and Origami arrived and said they would handle Kurumi. Ignoring their threat, Kurumi summoned more shadow clones to hold all 4 of them down and summoned another space quake. However, it was suddenly destroyed, shocking them. The next moment, Shido heard Kotori's voice, saying that it had been neutralized by an equal force. Following the voice, the group looked up and were surprised to see Kotori dressed in an astral dress and surrounded by flames. Kotori didn't give room for questions, and told Shido that she would temporarily take her power back from him, before summoning her angel, Kamail. Immediately, Kurumi resummoned Zafkiel, but instead of engaging Kotori, she sent her clones to fight in her stead. Kotori easily took them out using her flames, after which she took out the clones holding Shido captive. Suddenly, Kurumi teleported next to them after shooting herself with one of her bullets, but Kotori fought her off. In retaliation, Kurumi shot the 7th bullet at Kotori, freezing her in place and summoning her clones to all shoot Kotori. The last shot was delivered by the real Kurumi, and Kotori fell to the floor dead. But before Kurumi could celebrate her victory, Kotori's injuries were healed by her angel's powers. Being the smug brat that she was, Kotori mocked Kurumi for failing to end her life. So Kurumi used the first bullet again on herself and her clones. The next moment, Shido was surrounded by the clones, but Kotori pushed him out of the way and got overwhelmed by them. Since was stronger than them, she broke free and eliminated all the clones before injuring the real Kurumi, who healed herself again. She then threatened to finish Kotori off, but before that happened, Kotori got hit by a headache, so Shido rushed to her side. Seeing her in that state made Kurumi laugh, but Kotori proved that she wasn't a weakling by summoning Megiddo, the canon form of Kamail, and began powering it up with her flames. Alarmed, Kurumi surrounded herself with her clones, so when Kotori took the shot, the clones were wiped out instead of Kurumi. However, Kurumi's angel also got hit, so Kurumi fell to her knees in despair as Kotori tried to taunt her into another fight. When she didn't respond, Kotori powered up Megiddo and was about to shoot Kurumi when Shido called out to her. He reminded her that they weren't like the AST, but Kotori refused to back down. That was when he realized that Kotori had been consumed by fury, and that she wasn't listening to him. Without hesitation, he ran to stand before Kurumi, even though she weakly begged him not to do something as foolish as acting as her human shield. As Kotori fired the shot, she came back to her senses, but it was too late and Shido got hit. So, as he lay on the floor injured, he got flashes of the past. A younger Kotori stood above him, crying in her astral dress as her flames enveloped both of them. When Kotori noticed he was looking at her, she called out to him, but he was too weak to speak, and eventually passed out. When Shido woke up later, he was in Fraxinus' infirmary with Yoshino, and Renie. Yoshino apologized for disturbing him, after which she left. But Toka remained since she was fast asleep. Renie arrived shortly after and explained what had happened during the fight that led to him being brought there. Shido admitted that his memory was foggy and began asking questions about everyone's well-being. To calm him down, Reina hugged him, and after he calmed down, she told him that everyone was alive and kicking. Mana and Origami were taken to the hospital by the AST, while Kurumi escaped. Shido then asked about Kotori, so Renie took him to the containment room where she was being kept. After confirming that she was fine, Shido proceeded to talk about the obvious elephant in the room. Kotori explained that she was a normal human until she came into possession of spirit powers 5 years ago. Although Shido is shocked by this, he admits to Kotori that he knew, linking his knowledge to a dream he had. In the dream, he'd been running towards Kotori, but she burned him by accident and began to cry. Kotori said she had a vague memory like that and said Shido might have seen his memories as a dream because of the Ryoku connection they had. Shido asked how she became a spirit, and she told him that she couldn't remember how or when it happened. Shido then pointed out that it was strange that neither of them remembered what happened, and Kotori theorized that their memories were erased by someone. Curious, Shido asked how Kotori had hidden her spirit powers all these years, and she revealed that it was because he'd already sealed her powers. It was at that moment that Shido realized that his regenerative powers came from Kotori's spirit powers. With that out of the way, Kotori asked Shido to approach her, and when he did, she punched him in the stomach for being stupid and standing in her line of fire during the fight. She said he could have been seriously hurt if she hadn't snapped back to her senses, and told him that he had to take her out and make her fall in love with him, so he could seal her powers again. Suddenly, Kotori fell to her knees, and when Shido rushed to her side, Reina came in and asked him to leave, assuring him that she would take care of Kotori. The next day, Shido went to the hospital to visit Mana, but he was denied entry to her room. When Origami suddenly showed up, he told her what happened, and she explained that because of the severity of Mana's injuries, she was being treated with some classified tech. She told Shido that until she was out of recovery, he couldn't see her, and warned him against doing so by force. Having no choice, Shido decided to leave, but Origami faked a fall and asked Shido to carry her to her room, so he did so reluctantly. After he dropped her off, Origami asked him to tell her what happened during the fight, explaining that the last thing she saw before she passed out was a new spirit. Shido told her that he also passed out during the fight, so he didn't know what happened. However, he inquired why she wanted to know. Origami said it was personal, but told him the story of how her parents died because of the fire spirit 5 years ago. She told him it was the reason she joined the AST, and said she wouldn't rest until she got her revenge against the fire spirit. After leaving the hospital, Shido returned to Fraxinus, and Reina and Kanazuki advised Shido to take Kotori to a water park for their date. The next day, he went swimsuit shopping with Toka and Yoshino as part of his training for his date with Kotori. While there, Toka called his attention to a swimsuit she saw, and as he was explaining the concept of swimsuits to her, Origami chimed in from nowhere. She claimed that swimsuits were a type of battle gear used against spirits, and since Toka was gullible, she believed her. She asked Shido if he brought them there to get rid of them, and Origami answered that he did. Fortunately, Shido cleared things up and helped them see that Origami was playing on their intelligence. Embarrassed, Toka called Origami out for trying to trick them, and Shido asked Origami what she was doing at the store. Origami claimed she'd been walking by when she spotted Toka and decided to come in to speak with her. She then asked Toka if she knew who the fire spirit was, but Toka refused to tell her anything. Desperate, she began begging Toka to speak up, surprising them as they had never known Origami to act that way before. Put off by Origami's strange behavior, Toka agreed to tell Origami what she knows, much to Shido's horror. However, when Toka began speaking, he was relieved when he realized that she wasn't giving Origami the correct details she needed. When Origami dismissed Toka's description as useless, Toka became annoyed and called her an ungrateful brat. Ignoring Toka, Origami informed Shido that she didn't have a swimsuit, so he advised her to get one since she was already at the store. Origami then pleaded with him to help her pick one out, prompting Toka to challenge her to a swimsuit battle. She said that whoever won would go on a date with Shido later, and Origami happily agreed, even though they never asked Shifo if he was okay with the decision. The battle to make Shido's heart race then began with each girl trying to outwit the other. Shido did his best to give honest reviews, but Origami wasn't content, and tried to pull a fast one on Toka by having Shido undress her to see her underwear. Suddenly, they heard Yoshino's cry for help, so they rushed to find her and were surprised when they saw she was struggling to put on her swimsuit. For some reason, this made Shido's heartbeat increase, and Yoshino was declared the winner of the competition. Later on board Fraxinus, Shido opened up to Kanazuki, saying he wished he could remember what happened 5 years ago and how he sealed Kotori's powers. Kanazuki surprised him by offering to show him footage of the incident, which they had obtained from a local news network. As they watched the footage, Shido saw the moment Kotori became a spirit, and also saw that a barely visible individual had given it to her. Immediately, he asked Kanazuki to pause the footage, and as he focused on the individual standing next to Kotori, he suddenly got flashes of that day and passed out. The following day, Shido was surprised to learn that Yoshino and Toka would join him and Kotori for their date. So Reina explained that she decided to include the girls in the date because she thought it was a good idea. At the water park, after Toka and Yoshino got changed, Shido told them they could go in the water, and they excitedly ran off. Kotori came out shortly after, and when Shido gave her a once-over, she called him a disgusting lecher for checking his sister out. But he denied it. As the date continued, Toka suggested that all 4 of them go on the water slide, but Yoshino rejected the idea because she was scared that Yoshino would get swept away. Kotori also declined to go on the slide, but when Toka insisted that she and Shido go alone, she changed her mind. After their first attempt going down the slide, Kotori fearfully clung to Shido, so he asked what was wrong. Realizing that her tsundere mask was slipping, she quickly let go of him and asked him to retrieve her ribbons, which had fallen off. Shido asked if the ribbons had any significance, and she explained that the white ones represented her fragility while the black ones represented her strength. When they sat down to have lunch later, Shido noticed Kotori wasn't her usual self, so he contacted Reina and asked if her emotions had changed. Reina confirmed that they hadn't moved, making Shido conclude that his spitfire of a sister wasn't enjoying the date. Just then, Kotori got up, prompting Shido to ask where she was going, and she angrily answered that she was going to the restroom. Shortly after she walked away, Shido decided to go to the restroom, and on his way, he spotted Reina near the vending machine, tending to Kotori. When she was ready to leave, Shido followed her outside to discuss Kotori's condition. Reina revealed that ever since Kotori got her powers back, she hadn't been the same, so he asked why she had kept it from him. She told him it was Kotori's wish that he be kept in the dark, and added that she had proposed the date even though she didn't feel well. A little while later, Kotori returned to the food court to find Shido alone, so she asked where the girls were. He told her that he didn't know and suggested that they check out the amusement park, but Kotori hesitated because she believed his actions were in line with what her crew members told him. To prove that he was doing this of his own free will, Shido ditched his earpiece and grabbed Kotori's hand so they could go to the amusement park. At the amusement park, Shido and Kotori have fun going on different rides and visiting a haunted house, which makes Kotori scared, even though she pretends not to be. At the AST base, Ryuko was informed that the new weapon was missing, and she immediately deduced that Origami had taken it to go and challenge the fire spirit. Back at the park, the siblings got into a playful banter as they relaxed on the beach, but Kotori mentioned that the day had gone well. They were still talking when Shido was suddenly enveloped by a territory, as an explosion occurred where Kotori was. When the smoke cleared, he noticed that Kotori was missing, and when he looked up, he saw Origami wielding the new weapon. She instructed him to leave, saying that it would be dangerous if he stayed back, and Shido yelled at her for attacking his sister. Origami defended herself, saying the only thing she'd done was execute the fire spirit, but Kotori proved her wrong by revealing that she was still alive and kicking. When she began scolding Origami for opening fire in a public place, Origami got angry and opened fire on her again. Kotori protected herself using her flames, after which she changed into her astral dress and summoned Kamael. As the girls clashed against each other, Shido was forcefully pushed away. As the fight between Kotori and Origami intensified, Kotori felt the familiar pain in her head and slowed down, allowing Origami to trap her in a territory and fire an energy beam at her. However, Kotori escaped unhurt and began attacking Origami relentlessly until she was almost consumed by her powers. When Origami fell, Kotori summoned Megiddo and used it to threaten her, but Origami didn't respond. Considering her to be weak, Kotori prepared to shoot her, but Shido rushed towards them and screamed at her to stop. Kotori asked Origami how she discovered her identity, and Origami ignored the question to scream profanities at her. She said the fire spirit was responsible for her parents' deaths, and until she was dead, she wouldn't rest. Shocked by this revelation, Kotori fell to the ground, unable to accept the possibility that she might be a murderer. Origami then powered up the white licorice and captured Kotori in a territory, but before she could open fire, Shido came to stand between them. Origami asked him to move, but he refused, telling her that he wouldn't sit back and watch her Isekai his little sister. He told her that she would never recover if she became a murderer, but all his words fell on deaf ears, as Origami was too blinded by her rage. Refusing to give up, Shido told Origami that she was after the fire spirit and not Kotori, which confused her. He tried to convince her that Kotori was innocent, but Origami told him that as long as Kotori was a spirit, she didn't deserve to live. She asked him to move out of the way, but Shido refused and kept pleading with her to reconsider her decision. For a moment, Origami considered his words carefully, but then she summoned a territory around him and moved to attack Kotori. Just then, Toka and Yoshino arrived, stopping her before she could complete her task, but Origami retaliated. Fortunately, they dodged the attack before they could get hit, and Toka instructed Shido to take Kotori away while they fought Origami. So he did. When he felt he was far enough, he decided to seal her powers away, so he confessed to Kotori and asked how she felt about him so he could proceed. Kotori hesitated to answer, giving Origami the chance to get closer and open fire on them. Eventually, she admitted her feelings for him, so Shido leaned in and kissed her. But when this happened, Shido's memories returned. In the memory, the newly transformed Kotori walked towards Shido, who was lying unconscious on the ground, and kissed him. Immediately, his wounds healed. Kotori's astral dress disappeared, and Shido woke up like a sleeping beauty. He was also the one who gave Kotori the black ribbons she always wore on board Fraxinus. Back in the present, Kotori and Shido are shocked that their memories had returned. But their excitement over it was short-lived when another set of missiles nearly hit them. Shido then tried to run with Kotori, but another missile hit behind him, and the explosion caused him to sustain injuries. Shido then put Kotori down and turned to face Origami, saying he was now the fire spirit she wanted to get rid of since Kotori's powers were sealed inside him. He then explained that 5 years ago, even though Kotori caused the fire that destroyed the neighborhood, she was the one who murdered her parents. Origami refused to believe him, so he revealed that on that day there had been another spirit present, stating that it was that spirit who turned Kotori. Still, Origami refused to believe him, so Shido told her that she could end his life if she still wanted her revenge. This made her hesitate, but before she could decide on what to do, she suddenly felt weak and fell to the ground. This was because she'd reached her limit for using the white licorice, but she was still determined to finish her mission, so she pulled out a gun. As Shido tried to convince her to change her mind, she suddenly fainted from exhaustion. Later, after everything, Kotori asked Shido if the things he confessed to her before their kiss were true, and he confirmed that they were, making her feel shy. The shyness soon turned to annoyance when Shido added that the feelings were the type one felt for a sibling, earning himself a kick. Who do you think turned Kotori into a spirit? If you enjoyed this video, let us know by commenting your favorite timestamp. Don't forget to check out the next video.